Welcome to the Feminine Force. We are here to create a safe and happy place for mums and illuminate the feminine force in you. Morning, I have Alison Canavan here and Dr. Sherrie. Alison, I'll let you introduce Dr. Sherrie. It's going to be an exciting talk today.
It is. Thank you so much, Lisa. And I'm sitting in for the beautiful Caroline today. And I'm so thrilled. So this is the second week in a row we have had I know of having Dr. Sherrie with us, which is just absolutely fantastic. Now, Dr. Sherrie is a licensed psychologist who specializes in helping healthy people cut ties with the toxic people in their lives. She is a nationally recognized expert on family estrangement, an inspirational speaker, former radio host of the Dr. Sherrie Show and the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio, social media influencer and regularly featured media expert, and also has got her brand new podcast, which we'll tell you about at the end. But today we are so excited because we are talking about men. I have been mentioning this to all my friends all week. I didn't realize what a hot topic it is. Literally, like just on a whim, right? I would be on the phone to a girlfriend and I'm saying, we had Dr. Sherrie on last week, and they were like, oh my God, I love her and I loved you did the live with her. And I said, well, at the end of the conversation, I said, we started talking about men. And I said, she's coming back on to talk about the psychology of men. There was like, no way, I can't wait for that. So this is obviously a topic that women are more interested in than we think. Or that we talk
about. And fair, because there's really, I mean, I have a PhD, and at least the time that I was going through my education, there were no courses on male psychology. In fact, psychology is based on the hysterical female. That's primarily who Freud treated. So we don't really know a lot about men. And I started to become very interested in men because I wanted to be good at it. I wanted to understand it from a different vantage point, and was watching, men sort of stand helplessly by trying to understand this very complex woman, and just overwhelmed by our complexity, and in couples therapy, just trying, how do you marry these? I had to. And I don't think you can be effective as a couples therapist without really having a love for men and knowing them and how they work. And I can't tell you how many marriages I believe I've kept together that if they're coming into me, they're at the bottom rung. Mm-hmm. And couples therapy is extremely hard. And I actually pull my couples apart. I don't treat them together because of how men are built.
Interesting. Well, I'm sure we're going to find out a lot about that now. And from a personal perspective as well, like I'm one of 5 girls, and I lost my dad very young, and James's father is not present. And I'm raising a young boy. And for me, I think it's also important to explore this because I'd like to know a little bit differently about how men operate and think and feel. It is important because I agree with you that so much attention is given to women, which is probably, that sentence alone is probably going to get me cancel culture. But it is true. You see it all the time. I had a conversation today, which was very interesting, with 3 women, and I was standing there and they were really going for men, right? And they were talking about men this and men that, and, that the world's problems are because of absentee fathers and everything. And I'm standing there as a single mother, right, going, isn't it interesting how people never know who they're talking to? And I'm gone past the stage of saying, actually, but I like to just listen to people because I think you get an awful lot from hearing what goes on in people's minds and emotional bodies and everything. But I do hear a lot of men bashing going on at the moment. In fact, I literally just came off social media where I read another post there, which was interesting about, how people don't feel understood. If I was to ask you from what your experience is in working with people, what would you say is one of the core misconceptions around?
That women can't be abusers.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
I grew up under an abusive mother. Women
Yes,
can be abusers. It's the biggest misconception, or especially that mothers can be abusers. You know, I mean, I really am loving watching Johnny Depp in the quiet of his truth, whether he wins defamation, which is incredibly hard to prove, but if you, unless you have, you know, very little insight into patterns of behavior, it'd be very difficult to see Amber Heard. And mind you, I don't know her and I'm not an expert on her, but I'm an expert on patterns of behavior and the authenticity of emotions as they're congruent with what they're saying and how their body is reacting, and nothing is congruent. That's why there's this movement and watching Johnny. Also, there's no history for Johnny of any abuse, and there's a large history for Amber of abuse. And so we tend to believe that women can't be abusers. There is such a thing as toxic femininity. There can be a toxic anything. If you have too many carrots, it's going to be toxic. It's not this cancel culture deal that it gets turned into, which I also think that Amber is really doing a disservice to real victims.
yes.
And I think that maybe a balancing act in the universe is to bring something like this to Johnny, to life through Johnny Depp as a portal to see that men can be abusers, or can be abused by women. Now, the way that men respond to that abuse is slightly different, right? So to get into the basic mechanics of men, let's just talk about durability. Okay. The male sperm only lives 25 hours, but that sperm is very fast, just speed demon. So if the egg is low, you're going to have a boy. The female sperm is stronger and much more resilient, and she swims along for 72 hours. Same-aged men and women, men die 7 to 10 years before their same-aged partners. So that's just starting at DNA, okay? Men only use one side of their brain, not because they're dumb, but because of how they're designed and what their purpose is. So women can feel like men are so dumb. They're so dumb. Well, they can't multitask, but they're not dumb. They're built for a different task. They're built for different things in life. I'm just going to kind of give an archaic example, but men have one road. It's usually dirt road. And if they're going to go kill the bull to provide for their family, they go out on that road. They stay gone for however long they've got to be gone to find food and or today money, right, to bring home to the tribe. And they come back on the same road. When they get back, they want to rest and eat, or eat and rest. That's it. They have small bursts of energy and then they need to rest. Small bursts of energy, then they need to rest. That's how they're built. Their focus is pristine. It has to be so they don't die, so that they can give us what we need and keep the tribe alive. That's a huge, honorable responsibility that they carry with a ton of pressure, because it's not just their life that they have to provide for. It is the life of many. While they're gone, we are keeping camp, coming together, watching our own children, watching everybody else's children, breastfeeding 6 kids, putting up tents, clanning, cooking, all the things. We use the corpus callosum. It attaches us to both sides of our brain so that we can pay attention to every change, nuance, shift in wind, the sound of a stick, that we don't die while our protectors are gone. Okay, so we use both sides of the brain because we have babies. We have an extension of us that is going to be running around that we have to have all kinds of insight about, which is what the corpus callosum gives us. Okay, so we're very different. We're full of oxytocin, which is the bonding chemical for us to bond together and for us to bond to our children. When I was first with my boyfriend, he was like, "You never call
a bird." Does somebody have a bird? Okay.
I think that's actually me out the window.
Oh, really? I'm like, I can hear a bird. Sorry. I'm
I only got a bird. But I wouldn't call And he's like, you never call me, I mean, I can court you for as long as you want, but like, if you need me, you can call me. And I said, okay, well, let me break this down for you. And I gave him the bull example. I said, for if I call you and you're flying through the air mid stab, feet not on the ground, you're going to be like, yeah. And I'm going to be like, oh, I guess you don't want to talk to me. I guess I'm not important. I
I
guess
love
that
that.
you don't want me to bother you. Sorry, I'll never do it again. This is what I hear in my office. Okay. He doesn't feel that way, but imagine flying through the air and answering a phone. So what I said to him is, you can think about one thing at a time. You need to think about the bull, because the bull can kill you too. Okay. So in theory, you want me to know that I can call you. But in reality, for us to have the conversation that I'd like to have, you need to get the bull, pack it up, come back on the road, put that file down, pick mine up so that I can be the one thing you focus on.
Yeah, that's
And
brilliant.
it's how they work. It's not dumb. It's not a fault or a flaw. It's a difference. So I teach my women to respect that their man's brain is different. Women want to come first. When it comes to their men, women want to come first. I think women need to learn to come first in their own very magical, sweet life and not demand that they can only feel validated or loved if they are made to feel by him that they come first, meaning put the knife down and the bull, but you got to kill it still and bring it back, but you got to talk to me because I need you right now. Men don't want to be at the center of a woman's universe. It's very scary for him. He experiences the intensity of emotion much deeper than her because he doesn't have a lot of the processing skills that we have with that corpus callosum. There isn't an overdose of oxytocin for him to feel unending empathy for us. When men get done killing the bull, or they come home from work, or they've gone out fishing with their friend, they need to rest. Then they can put you first. But when you have someone going, put me first, he's going to get overwhelmed and his thinking is going to be like, I want out. Hands down, men tell me the number one reason that they cheat or leave is because the woman they're with is constantly making them feel like they have to change.
Wow.
I've had this theory about men and women, right? Because I discovered in myself that I didn't want to be rescued. Like, the more emotionally mature I became, I didn't want to be rescued, but I would see this pattern sometimes come up when I'd been activated. And I could feel there was a part of me that really wanted my partner to come and fix me. And I realized in the moment that was a dynamic. But I also realized that while ever I needed him to rescue me, he couldn't fully take off his armor. Like, he could not be completely vulnerable, because while ever there was this unconscious thing going on that there might be some sense that his woman would have to be rescued, how could a man fully take off his armor and be vulnerable? And I really felt like my growth emotionally was so important to my partner's emotional growth. Like, allowing him to be vulnerable had everything to do with my capacity to meet my own emotional needs.
Yeah, not demanding vulnerability. A man cannot get there by a demand. He has to have the freedom and space to be allowed to get to vulnerability on his own. And this includes commitment. He has to know for him. You can't force a man into commitment. Okay, he's not built this way. When men, I was on Good Morning America talking about Liam Neeson. It was 5 years past the time Natasha had passed away. They were asking him why he hadn't moved on. When a man and a woman go through a breakup, women, again, we clan together, we love on each other, we kind of rebirth each other, we really do some beautiful things. Do you know what he's left with? Emotional homelessness. He is emotionally homeless without a female. I feel like men really ground us. That's kind of their role. They're not supposed to rescue us. In fact, I encourage women to live a life that you don't need to be rescued from, but not from toxic femininity either. Like, I don't need you. You don't need to open my door. I find all of that very off-putting, because I don't think he wants to rescue you, but I think he likes to serve you and help you and nurture you and court you and make things easier for you. He can't do anything right at some point, and so he shuts down. When it comes to communication, because they don't use the corpus callosum and a woman does, so if he has a slight change in mood or tone or something changes, we're digesting this quickly and we're calling him out on it. Okay, he's not there yet. He doesn't even know that. So women in general are almost always right about whatever the topic is that's on the table. However, almost always how women communicate it is self-righteous and it doesn't land. All it does is make him defensive. He doesn't know what to do. He can't fix it. Her emotions are all over the place because she's not understanding the way he's working. She wants him to respond like a woman would respond. Because when we clan, we have this habit of like, yeah, he should have done this and he should have done that. Well, if he had a vagina, for sure, but he doesn't. He's got something else going on and he thinks and acts differently. When he goes to his cave, he's not doing it to abandon you. He's doing it to help the relationship. He needs time to figure out what he's thinking. And if you're just there banging on the door, you're going to turn him into someone who's very emotionally unavailable, and he will find you scary. He will find talking to you so scary because he cannot hold the influx of all the emotions that either he just is complicit and tells you you're right, or he kind of shuts down. But he's really not being able to be himself. I even help fathers of sons parent their sons the way that they would want to be treated by a woman. Like, give your kids some freedom. Women are afraid to let men run off leash. They believe if they're not always monitoring him, that he's up to something bad. So he's always looked at as the enemy. I mean, could you imagine how much
there is some truth in though, Sherrie. Like because I've been single for like 5 years, and I had a very good male friend that I was talking to me after I left my last relationship, and he was telling me just how unfaithful men are, and I'm like, no, and he goes, yes, and I'm going, no, surely not, because I have this like, no, and he's going, yes, and I'm like,
well, if you're in a relationship where you're never right and there's no happiness and you keep giving what, and you try to follow the rules and you're trying to do it in the way she wants it, as she wants it, how she wants it, at the time she wants it, with the right tone of voice as she wants it. And that's a lot of pressure for a man. I think that cheating anymore is very equal, especially with women in the workforce traveling and being away. I think the greatest cause of cheating is a disconnect in the marriage. It's not men or a penis. I think that women cheating is just not as spoken about or as much in the news. I've had as many women in my practice over 30 years cheat as men. And I've had them cheat if bad and if not worse. But if you are someone who you cannot fill up, if you can't fill her up, and she's like a funnel rather than a waterproof bucket, I mean, at some point, and some other one's going to make you feel good and not like an utter failure. Because men experience loss not as loss as we do, but as failure. They failed.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about the fundamental difference between the sexes, right, and you're bringing it back down to like not the simplistic, but the fact that the brain works very, very differently. For me, it's interesting with what is happening with the movement of culture. Yeah, it's moving towards, like, we're moving in a very different direction with, this whole women want equality and, I want this, and men are the same as women, and we're kind of berating men for not, like, there's a lot, to me, there's a lot of confusion out there at the moment.
I think that women say they want equality, but they want men to do more. So that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, as far as like equal pay or things like that, that makes sense to me. But on an emotional level, they don't want to be equal. They either want to dominate that man or they want him to always be doing more. So I don't buy that. I think.
So what is it from a woman's perspective? Do you think it's insecurity? you know, that they feel like they need to have that control over a partner, not allowing him to just be. Is that something that's going on with them?
Yeah, I think that women have greater security needs than men. I think that we feel more vulnerable than them as a DNA person. I mean, I can tell you that when I go running, I'm armed, and every man I run past is not. And I would not believe that I could beat up my predator in the same way that a man would. I think they're stronger physically, and I think that they don't have so much oxytocin. They're a little more fearless when it comes to physical engagement, right? I love men. I love men. I love their purpose now that I understand it, but I also had to embrace my own. And I think that finding my femininity was bigger. I was very masculine as a survivor, and I didn't understand that. Giving is masculine, controlling is masculine. I didn't realize that receiving was feminine, and being in my body was feminine. I watch all my women get in their head and start strategizing on how to get this guy to give her attention. And I'm like, get back in your body, don't elevate him above your own authority. And because you're never going to force him. Boy, you try to force a man to do something, you're going to get complete resistance because it's not how they're built. You have to let him run off leash. I think that when men are allowed to run off leash and live their best life, meaning you as a woman need to live your best life, he will choose to be with you. He will find that running without you has its moments, but that, he really misses you. We bring heaven to earth. And I don't know that women also know of their femininity. In studying masculine energy, I recognized how masculine I was. And I was constantly trying to direct and control. And I think women probably have a little bit of a deeper insight than men. So I think we misuse that in the relationship. I think it's great to use it out in the world, but you have to value yourself. Men want a high value woman. Mm-hmm. They want a woman that they don't have to rescue. They don't have to parent. They don't want the timing of a phone call to be the make or break of her entire self-worth, entire day. Then he's punished for it for the rest of her life. That isn't what a healthy, high value woman would bring to a man. You want to take the pressure off your man. You don't want to put it on him. He works hard and I work hard, and you become a dependent on some level where he sees you more as a child than a woman. Mm-hmm. Another thing to think about chemically is when you spend 24/7, like I'm going to go spend the weekend with my boyfriend, and being around me and all my snuggly and my oxytocin, it physiologically lowers his testosterone. So I know that after I leave, he just needs to go build those reserves back up. And as long as I'm all over him, he cannot do that. They need bursts of love and then to pull back. So I tell women, give a little, then pull back. Men are like rubber bands. They start to create a lot of tension, and women go, and they create slack. And he's like, oh, you want him to snap back. For a woman to feel all this validation that she wants, she can't create slack. She's got to let him choose her.
Yeah. I have watched that so often with men, and I thought, I don't want to pull back, but and I could not describe what was happening naturally, and it was that pull back. So I'd love to know from you when you're in those moments, because with this same friend on a Saturday morning, I wake up and I'm like, and he goes, whoa, it's Saturday morning. Like, can we just not talk for a bit? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. So, but how does a woman speak to a man then? If I have a whole lot of feelings and say, because I talk to a lot of women about this, like, I feel like he doesn't love me, or I feel scared, whatever I'm feeling, I've got all this feeling. And when I try to talk to him about it, he doesn't want to talk to me about it. How does a woman get to the point where the man can actually sit and be with her?
Okay. So one, sit next to him. When men go out to war, they go out side by side. Who do they face?
The enemy.
Football field. They go out on the field side by side. Who do they face?
The opposition.
When they go to a business meeting, they go out to a business dinner. They sit across from who? Okay, don't do that. That triggers a man up for, I can't fail. Okay.
Yeah.
He's in more of a mode of, of fight or flight. You know, he's got to achieve the goal. I always sit next to my man and I try to move. Because when you look at men being side by side, they're not like cuddling. I mean, they're moving, they're golfing, they're running, they're playing some kind of a sport. So in a car, on a hike, get him walking and you'll get him talking and he will open up. And I even angle my chair in my office so that I don't have a direct view on my men. And they tend to start out on the side of the couch where the chair isn't angled at. And then as they get comfortable with me, they move on down. It's really sweet. I mean, they have such good souls. And if you're gentle with a man and you tell him what's on your heart, because I want you to stay in your body, don't tell him what's on your mind. I usually start with, well, I have something on my heart, that I want to tell you. If he gets argumentative because he's used to being so attacked, one thing I've said is, I don't really feel better after I tell you how I feel. And so therefore they're my feelings. So I work through them alone. And the response is, what? Because he's ready for this woman to just onslaught him and really tear him down on how bad he is. And I came to the decision that I am an adult. They are my feelings. And so I really don't need a man to help me work through my own feelings. And if I do, maybe that's kind of an issue. So I have said, your agreement or your validation don't really change how I feel. So when the conversation turns into whether you agree or validate or not, now the conversation's about you and how I feel is now off the table. I would just like to focus on how I feel, allowing you to know that you don't need to fix it. This is just how I'm feeling. This is what's in my heart. I would just like you to think about it. Men want to fix. That's one of their flaws. I think that women feel like, I don't need you to fix it. I just, but because they want to do that, I think you can just say, this is in my heart. I really don't even want your opinion. It isn't going to change how I feel. I don't need your validation to know that how I feel is right for me. That takes all the pressure off of him. Okay. Also, men don't want to talk about the relationship 24/7. You know what men want? They want to feel good. That's it. They don't want to feel litigated. They don't want to feel like there's a judge and a jury. They have to talk about every aspect of everything going on in the relationship. They just want to feel good. They're very simple. I've learned to see that as such a gift, a break from all my femininity of this complexity and the spiritual aspects of being a woman and all the things. I love being with my man. Do I think he's dumb? No, I think he's simple. And oh my God, does it feel good to just sit in his simplicity and not worry so much about everything. There are really gifts that give us.
But
I'm just going to read.
You could say men just want to be happy, but then you could say the same for women. And you could say that they're seeking that happiness through men, right? Which a lot of women are. I mean, I see, so for a lot of my friends that come to me, it's like, I don't understand. He went here yesterday and he didn't ring, or he did this, or if they're dating, it's like, we went to meet a great date and we were talking last night and he hasn't messaged me today. Like, what is it about us as we're evolving as women that we seem to be so paranoid?
Let me tell you, this is so funny. This woman said, I'm a football widow. Football season has started. And I'm like, that's a new one for me. I've never heard of football widow. He never pays attention to me during football. He only talks to me at commercials or halftime. And I said, okay, do me a favor. This Sunday, in the middle of the game, middle of the play, leave, go into the kitchen, memorize spice labels. I don't really care, but take your mind completely off of him. Tell me what happens. So she comes in the next week and she's kind of like, And I said, all right, what happened? She goes, within 30 seconds. He's like, babe, what are you doing? Come sit with me.
That's like me and my dad. My dad and I, when I was a teenager, I used to do that all the time to him. And I used to get so upset because he'd never pay attention to me while he was watching the Sunday night football. Oh,
yes.
wow.
I'm like, just if you can remove the energetic neediness, just go memorize spice labels. I don't care what you do in the kitchen. Just take your mind totally off of him. It creates space. So she realized he does want me there. He just doesn't want me to talk his ear off the entire game. because he can only focus on one thing at a time. So when the commercial comes, he's like, hey, babe. And she's like, oh, now you're talking to me. I mean, it's like crazy in a way, you know. It's sad because I just can't imagine. I can't imagine having the pressure. I mean, I grew up under very toxic parents, and I felt responsible for their feelings all the time. And I was constantly afraid to even try to reach their expectations because it wasn't going to measure up anyway. And it demotivates you. And this is what I think happens to men. I started to understand them because I grew up under something that was applying such an unhealthy pressure on me. You know, I want to talk about the land of women for a minute. Okay. Let's pretend there's an island of women and there's 3 types of women, and I've been all of them. Okay. I've played every role here because I came out of my abusive family, you know, pretty destroyed with 0 self-worth. My dad married 5 times, my mom 4. So I did believe like I needed a man, and I was that girl that I'm going to talk about. So the first woman we're going to talk about is the woman that sits right on the bank, and there's boats of men going by, and she's like this. Bring me in your boat. I'm hitchhiking your boat. Okay. I mean, if he can get his, what's that? The milk and the cow for free. He'll pick you up, and then he'll be like, okay, row the boat. You know, she's doing rowing the boat, rowing the boat, rowing the boat. She's doing all the work in the relationship. I tell my women, they all leave. Don't row the boat. That's the saying when they leave my office. I'm like, don't row no boats. Row the boat. So he'll be like, cool. So then she gets mad. You row the boat. I always row the boat, right? And he's like, you hitchhike to be in my boat. If you give too much to a man, he'll take it and he'll get lazy. Okay. So you don't want to be always in like the bullpen of Larry. He can be like, there she is. Tiara and sash, favorite bullpen girl, you know, but he's interested in whatever else is moving around. So the woman in the middle has discovered there's women in the center of the island who are magical. They're living their best life. They love themselves. They're career oriented, or they're stay-at-home moms and their best self, whatever it is. But they are passionate about themselves, their lives, what they offer. They don't even know boats of men are going by. That's who men want. They will leave that boat and die fat, laden, happy in the center of your island, so content and that they can not have to constantly babysit your emotions, babysit your self-worth. They don't want to do that. The woman in the middle is the one, as we're growing, where we kind of rush back to the shore because we just don't believe in our worth, that a man would just really just love us for us, because we're so focused on his love in the center of the island. You're not focused on him at all. Just like the spice label, no one should be elevated above you and your own authority in your life. No man should be determining your worth. You need to do that. He feels the safest with a woman who knows her own worth, because he is already building Mount Everest out in the world. He can't come home and do double duty to someone who he's working so hard and she's never happy with him. I can't imagine. Well, I can, because I had parents that did that to me, and I know how terrible that feels. I don't know
that's
why.
That over responsibility. I see that a lot, and like I've worked with men that are very bitter because they're like, I did everything for her, and you know, and this real sense of like extended responsibility for women, like financially as well, and it's such a burden.
It really is a burden. I can't imagine burdening. Also, I love that I can say to him, you don't pay my mortgage. You don't pay my car note. So in other words, some men can get a bit controlling and they can want to tell women how to be. And I have the power to say, cute, ew, you don't get to do that, because I'm actually living my best life, and I was living my best life without you. So therefore, you're not needed to give me a better life. I've already got it. So that's when he goes, oh my God, I want to be a better man. We are the emotional leaders. So what are we going to do? Criticize him into compliance? And then will we respect him? We have no respect for men at all. We feel like they should be on the hot dial whenever we want them, and that is what love is. That is not love. if you can viably do something for yourself, be proud of that and do it. You know, like I did some remodeling on my house, and I've never been someone who builds things very well. My brain doesn't really work that way. Girls, I'm good at IKEA now. Like, I'm like, I know what that was. I built it upside down, but I know how to undo it, you know? So my boyfriend's like, let me help you. Let me help you. And I'm like, no, I got it. I would love for women to be more proud of their capabilities instead of limiting things to like, well, that's a man's job. But why? Why does it all have to be a man's job? Seems like just men are carrying the weight of the world, and it's not easy. It's not hard to get a man into feeling a sense of failure.
And it's interesting that you talk about the different types of women, because as I'm listening, I'm so quiet today because I'm listening to every word going, that's me, that was me. Oh, that was me too. That's interesting. I've been single since James was born. I've been single for nearly 12 years now. And, you know, it's interesting that I have been, when you're talking about doing things by yourself, it's interesting coming from my own family and how things were, and a really healthy relationship wasn't really modeled, right? Like, I think it's very rare that really healthy relationships are modeled, unfortunately, today. Like, and
I honestly think that we are bereft of really happy women.
Yes, we are.
But the sexiest thing to a man is a woman's smile, an easygoing nature. When a man decides that you're the one, he will do nearly anything to stay with you,
but it's
to their total abuse.
But it's interesting that we're not told that as women, and in any shape or form, by either the behavior that's modeled or from the experiences that we create, right? Because pretty much, I would say 95% of women I know were panicking at a certain age, right? Like, I get constantly in conversations when I lived in Ireland, when I was in interviews, interviewers used to say to me all the time, you're still single. Oh my God, like blah, 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 as if like I was some kind of freak of nature. But it was just interesting to see the other side where, you know, friends and women came to me and said, but you need a man to take care of you. Like, you have a son to raise. And I'm like, it really gave me a whole different way of seeing life. Like you say, when I moved into my cottage in Ireland, I built my IKEA wardrobes. It's so funny. I built everything myself. And it's like, it's not that I don't want to accept help, but for me, it was very important to heal that part of me. And for
me
now,
too. And to feel so excited, like skipping through the center of your island, like, I built it. And you don't want to be like, yo, I built it, get off. You don't want to be that diva, gross, ill.
Yeah.
Because men don't even appreciate that you can do it. Like my boyfriend, and be humorous about your flaws. Like, I really am a whole lot of Chrissy from Three's Company. I mean, I'm the PhD part of me is the smallest part. I am klutzy. I am the biggest ditz sometimes. I mean, it's hysterical. But some women are just so serious and so self-critical, and they're giving everyone a running negative narrative, everything they're doing in life. You don't walk down the stairs right. You didn't say hi to me right. You know, I mean, you have to be able to be fun and find the humor. You know, men really want to play. So I always think those who play together stay together. Mm-hmm. And I think you got to meet men halfway. You can't just sit and be like, so are you going to do it? What are you doing? You're going to do it? Like what? Why can't you do it? Why can't you enjoy being able to do it? Accept the help when he's there to help you. Know where you can't fix things or not. Don't be afraid to ask him for help, but allow him to help you, you know, when he can, and it may not always be in your time. And if he can't show up in time, hire somebody.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing from you is women really need to do the work on themselves.
Yes.
Like that's what it comes down to. It's like doing the work on yourself, getting whatever way that looks. And that's for the last 12 years, for however many years, like every single day, my priority is, you know, doing the work. And for a large part of that, as I've come through my own healing journey, what I realized is what was missing out of my life is joy and play, right? Like,
yes, I mean, I get it. So many women are so crabby. They're so down on life and down on men, and everything's stupid, and they're not on a pedestal, and they never get their way. And it's like, well, I don't know who created the pedestal except the women and really every Disney movie is totally misunderstood and misinterpreted. Cinderella wanted a night off and a cute freaking dress. She didn't even know she was dancing with the prince. She wasn't looking for him. He was looking for her. We connect men to their spirits. They connect us to the ground. They connect us to feeling safe in this world. Okay. In Beauty and the Beast, she rescues him. All the men are in the castles. They're rescuing him. That's how powerful we can be if we can come without pride, and we can come with love and staying in our body and getting out of all this planning on how we're going to get the man. I mean, that's his job. He picks, you choose. You know, when you're fun and you trust him and you allow him to run off leash, he's not going to cheat.
So when you're fun,
trapping him, and you're miserable to be around, he's going to cheat.
But when you're fun and having play yourself and you trust yourself, that's all going to work out. But when you're not fun and when you don't even trust yourself, well, then that's what I find a lot as well.
Yes. Like, and here's another thing. Let's say you're a perfect woman and he cheats. Okay. That happens. Bad things happen to good people. However, you live at the center of your island. You're not going to be washing up dead on the shore because you were in a boat that wasn't yours. You left your island to go please a man. That's when you're really going to struggle making it. Stay in your life. My commitment in my life is to my life, is to the love of my life, to the spirit of my life, to the gentle essence of my life, to the understated qualities of beauty that I put into my life. It's not a bring and brag show. I love my life. I love the beauty of it, the quiet of it, the pain of it, the excruciating moments really bring me to a new place. I love researching. I love journal writing. I love all the things. There's 3 amazing books that I want to leave with before I go to that I can tell you introduced me to my feminine nature, where I didn't have to fix it all. I wasn't responsible for everybody's happiness and everybody's feelings. One was The Red Tent. I don't know the author, but it's a bestseller. This book was incredible. Yes. Another one is called Women Who Run with Wolves.
Yes, I have
this book. It takes you through such a gorgeous feminine travel. And then Pussy, A Reclamation is hands down one of the best books I have ever read on being feminine. And I read it on 2/02/2022.
In the day.
The most feminine number. And it was just by chance I started reading it that day. I love numerology. That book helped me to see things, and she uses the word pussy and she tells you why. It's not my favorite word in all the world, to be honest, but when you understand why she's using it, it's pretty incredible. I've always thought that sex was for men, that if I didn't do that, I was going to lose my man. No, men need sex for sure in a different way than we do. But when you figure out who you are as a woman, girl, sex is for you. And it just gives such an incredible, joyful, non-shameful, like, woo, it is for you, and how incredibly we're built. And this is the thing, is that we bring heaven to earth, and we are a man's safe harbor. The number one way that he wants to show us that he loves us is through action, and that will be through sex or lovemaking. Amazing. If you don't have a connection with yourself and you're expecting him to fill you up, and I find couples, well, I don't feel connected, so I'm not going to have sex. And he's like, I can't feel connected unless I'm having sex. And I get this terrible dynamic where they're not willing to meet halfway. Hands down, I just think that as a more complex being, not a smarter being, but a more complex being, we need to take more responsibility to love ourselves and take these unrealistic, unmet needs off of men, all the pressure they already have. Let them rest, respect their time, talk to them after work. They deserve love. They deserve that understanding, and there is no psychology on it. And I tend to read, for women that want to get better at men, I would look up Brian Knox. He wrote a book called Fuck Him. The U is a heart. And he has all kinds of stuff on YouTube that can kind of help you understand men. I'd rather learn about men through a man. Not that they're incredible writers, but I'm learning about femininity through women. I'm really not going to consult a man to know about my femininity. And we should not be consulting very many women, including myself. But I only study, I learn from men about men. So I think I'm a reasonable something. If something landed for you today that fits, that's because I've been studying men, for how they talk about being men. So it's such a beautiful journey to learn about them.
And I think it's such, I want to thank you for joining us today, because I think it's such a beautiful conversation to even open up amongst our girlfriends, with our guy friends, because it's an important conversation to have. And what's the most important thing that I heard from you today is women need to become emotionally secure themselves. Like, we're the only ones that can really fulfill our unmet needs, right, on this journey. And we have to do that, because if we don't, we're going to be seeking outside of us, from, and not just from our partners, by the way, or our husbands, but we start doing it with our kids. Right. So
we do. And I don't think, I mean, I think that loving men should be exciting. It shouldn't be offensive. I don't know why we'd have to totally denigrate a whole group of people. They're necessary for us. You know, we're necessary for them. I don't think one's more important than another, but I think that they're misunderstood. And I think if understood properly, there's just a lot more love in the world.
Beautiful, right? Beautiful place to leave it at.
Yes. Thank you,
Sherrie.
ladies.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Thank you, Ali. It's been so wonderful. And thank you, everyone, for listening. It's been so wonderful to have you here. Look forward to our next talk. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.